spent 53 days from early June to late July 2023 traveling over 5,300 miles to visit the Mountain West. We drove through 10 different states and visited several national parks, national monuments and memorials, and state parks. We began planning this trip more than 12 months in advance. We will be sharing our experience and the beauty of this country in multiple videos that include highlights of our major stops on this journey. It was truly an amazing trip with many lasting memories captured in these videos. For the first leg of our journey, we drove to Indiana Dunes State Park for a quick stay. We have been to the state park in the past, but this trip was just for an overnight stop. The next day we got up early, but it wasn't early enough to beat the Chicago traffic. Our plans were to drive to Rockford, Illinois and Madison, Wisconsin, then head west to Wyalusing State Park. These plans were changed on the fly due to an accident causing an hour-and-a-half delay. Instead, we drove on across to Davenport, Iowa and up to the Wyalusing State Park. Wyalusing State Park borders the Wisconsin and Mississippi rivers in southwest Wisconsin. It provides some great views from bluffs 500 feet above both rivers. Wyalusing is one of the oldest state parks in Wisconsin. It's a great park that provides hiking trails, a canoe trail, bicycling, fishing, and boating. The bird watching is also amazing, especially in the spring and fall when the birds are migrating up and down the Mississippi. Our campsite in the Wisconsin Ridge Campground backed up to a bluff overlooking the Wisconsin River. Cassie loved the hiking, while Sue captured some fantastic photos of an indigo bunting. Let's go check this ridge trail out, Cassie. She's ready. She likes to go on the trails. Let's go hiking. Well, be careful. She tripped. Go on. After 3 days at Wyalusing State Park, we continued heading west to Forest City, Iowa, the home of Winnebago and where our motorhome was built. We also purchased our motorhome from Lixon RV in Forest City. We stopped here for warranty work, annual service, and inspection to help ensure the motorhome was prepared for the long journey ahead. While in Forest City, we visited the small downtown area and dined at the authentic Mexican restaurant A Jalisco. There are not many food options in Forest City, but the Mexican food here is outstanding and a must-stop for us when visiting our dealer. After our 2-night stop in Forest City and everything checked out with the motorhome, it was time to get through the plains and make our way out west. We headed north to Minnesota, then west on I-90 with an overnight stay at the Mitchell KOA Journey in Mitchell, South Dakota. The next morning, we continued our drive and arrived mid-afternoon at the Badlands National Park in South Dakota. On this drive, the land opened up and we could see for miles. Cattle ranches were common, and we began to see buffalo and pronghorns. Sue and I felt like we finally reached the west. Once we arrived in the Badlands, we drove directly to the Cedar Pass Campground, where we stayed 2 nights. The campground is located in the national park in a valley nestled in the Badlands. Once we got set up in the campground, we took a 10-minute walk over to the Ben Rifle Visitor Center to get more information on the park and buy a couple of souvenirs. That evening, we attended a ranger talk on stargazing at the amphitheater. We had a beautiful night, and to our surprise, we saw a Starlink satellite train from a recent SpaceX launch. Day 2 was what we came to do, drive the Badlands Loop. If you're visiting the Badlands, this is a must-do. 1 day was plenty to drive the loop. As you can see from this map, there are many scenic points along the route. We stopped at several of them, with our favorites including the Panorama Point, Burns Basin Overlook, Yellow Mounds Overlook, and Big Badlands Overlook. We had lunch at Burns Basin Overlook. We were the only ones there. The dramatic landscapes of the Badlands include layered rock formations, steep canyons, and towering spires. There are many trails to hike to see and experience the Badlands. We did some brief hiking, but Cassie was not allowed on any of the trails, which is common in most national parks. The drive around the loop was breathtaking in many ways. The Badlands were rugged, yet beautiful, and unlike anything Sue and I have seen. This lunchtime view. Fantastic view. The only one parked here. We're having lunch. There they are.
You're not allowed, girl.
After our visit to the Badlands, we made a short drive over to the Black Hills in South Dakota, where we planned to spend 3 days in 2 different campgrounds in Custer State Park. For our first day, we arrived at the Game Lodge campground. We didn't have much planned for our visit here, maybe a trip to the visitor center, a short hike, and visit to the lodge. However, the night before, Sue did some research and found we were staying near the Wildlife Loop Road. We decided we should drive the loop where there are often sightings of buffalo, elk, pronghorns, and more. But then, better than driving the loop ourselves, Sue found a buffalo safari that was available, so we booked it. It departed from the Creekside Lodge, a short walk from the campground. When we arrived for the safari, we were greeted by our guide, Jerry, a local cattle rancher. We jumped on the oversized Jeep and away we went. What fun, and such a great experience.
Because she's nervous because we drove down here to disturb her.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
Oh my God, that was cool.
Now she's going to check this out, make sure that's hers. And I don't think it is.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
She's walking away.
No, that's hers.
She's looking back.
She's looking.
It's not over here.
It's not a snort, that's just their talk. Okay, so what they eat today comes out 4 days from now.
Oh, interesting.
But they gotta have 30 pounds a day.
Wow.
There's a young calf drinking water with his mama. He's
Yeah.
really young. You can tell because he's small. He's still kind of hunched up in the back. That's from being inside mama too, you know, for 9 months. But he's a really young calf. Where I come from, we call this pasture right. Just remember, what comes up's got to go down. So everything to the right just keeps climbing to the high elevation into the Black Hills proper. The very end of the Black Hills is that black line you see down there. That's the outer ridge down by Hot Springs.
next morning, we got up and left the Game Lodge campground. Next stop, Mount Rushmore National Memorial. Given the size of our motorhome, we could not take the shorter drive up US 16A, so we went out and around taking South Dakota 36 and South Dakota 40 through the beautiful Black Hills. We arrived at Mount Rushmore mid-morning on a day when a naturalization ceremony was planned. After leaving Mount Rushmore, we headed to the Crazy Horse Memorial. This was a short 30-minute drive that continued through the Black Hills. The memorial was dedicated in 1948 to honor Crazy Horse. Construction began then and continues today. Crazy Horse is probably most famous as a great warrior who defeated Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn, otherwise known as Custer's Last Stand. He lived and led the Lakota Nation during a time when cultures clashed and land became an issue of deadly contention, and traditional native ways were threatened and oppressed. Crazy Horse responded by putting the needs of his people above his own, which would forever embed him and his legacy in American history. The Crazy Horse Memorial and the museum there was well worth the visit. After visiting Mount Rushmore and the Crazy Horse Memorial, it was time to drive to another campground in Custer State Park, Bluebell. Only a 30-minute drive from Crazy Horse, we stopped in Custer for groceries. What a cool town. I wish I would have stopped for a drink at one of the old western saloons. Instead, we headed on to the campground nestled in the Black Hills where I had my whiskey. What a great view.
What a view of the Black Hills.
The next morning, we had a short 30-minute drive down South Dakota 87 to Wind Cave National Park. On our way there, we saw several buffaloes, including near the park entrance. Wind Cave was established as a national park in 1903 by Theodore Roosevelt. The park is the 7th longest cave in the world with 150 miles of passageways. It is the 3rd longest cave system in the United States. We took the Garden of Eden tour lasting about an hour. In the Garden of Eden room, we saw, up close, intricate formations of frostwork and popcorn. We also saw boxwork, flowstone, and stalactites. At one point, our ranger turned the lights out. I couldn't see my hand directly in front of my face. That was enough. It was time to leave the caves and head back to the campground. What a great trip we had getting out to South Dakota and exploring the Badlands and the Black Hills. With our adventures here captured in this video and in our memories, it's time to move on across Wyoming to the Grand Teton National Park.